This is our podcast, where we belly flop into the bouncy house of mystery, surrounded by conspiracies and unexplained phenomena, with theories so bizarre, they may actually make you say,
"Are they thinking with their butt?" We're recording. Did you really? That's strange.
Are we recording?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. We're recording. Sorry. I was getting all pumped up and excited, and I tweaked my neck while I was, doing T-Rex arms.
He's so old. He pulled a muscle hyping himself up.
Woo! Okay, so welcome to another episode of Stop Thinking with Your Butt. I'm Chris.
And I'm Katie.
And today we are going to talk about I was going to say little known fact, but who knows? It all depends on where you are in your deep diving.
Mind is, yeah.
Right? On David Icke. Okay.
Ooh.
David Icke, a British conspirator who, in summary.
Oh, that's fancy.
I know. Conspirator. Yeah, you're welcome. He considers himself the elite's worst enemy.
So my mom.
I feel like I'm an elite. So
you're an elite. I would consider you an elite.
When I say elite, I'm not talking about like us because
we don't even qualify.
We are elite, but no, like the 1% of the 1%.
Like the mega billionaires. Oh, that.
Yeah, you had to wait. You had to wait 1%. For the. You had to wait a little bit longer. Those elites, right?
Okay.
Because a couple things. He started his career as also predicting the world ending in 1997. So we'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
And then finally, right, he believes that he is one of the few people who are speaking out to expose the mega manipulation of the earth by not the elites, lizard people.
I was going to say Quakers.
Quakers. Now, a little bit broader there, babe. No, lizard people. We'll talk about where lizard people and some of his ideas came from and just the global manipulation. And it is a large conspiracy that just interwebs with other different things and different ideologies. So we may go in a couple of rabbit holes, but we'll pull back as we need to. Before we get more into what David Icke's thoughts on certain things are, we'll talk a little bit more about the person and how did this man grow up? Because it's always interesting when people say, it's the end of the world. How did you get there?
How did you arrive at that conclusion?
Let's pause and let's go back more than just a year or 2 years, but like, where did it all begin? And were there any signs that some may say crazy, right. Others may say enlightened. Perfect. Oh, that's awesome. So let's go look at it. So David Icke started out as a football player in England, right? He was on the English Football League, and he was a goalie over there, and he wasn't there for too long because he started getting arthritis in his wrist, and so he had to retire at an early age. But
that's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but this is also...
Was he good?
I think...
So then maybe it's not unfortunate.
Well, I would say yes, because if you're just getting on the league, you typically are good.
That's true.
Right?
That's
so
true.
You're always good, but are you great? It'll be hard to determine because I think he retired at like 23. So it's kind of hard to determine if he really
put himself out long enough to determine. Okay.
But one of the interesting pieces from that history is he wrote his first book. I did a lot of things in my life. I haven't written books yet. Not he is definitely, you'll find out, a book writer on a lot of different things. He's written over 20 plus books in his lifetime. But his first one started out in soccer saying, "It's a tough game, son." No response. It's a tough game, son, on how entering the soccer league is, I'm assuming, tough.
It's underwhelming.
Oh, well, you know what? First book, I'm going to give him credit. I'm glad he even just reached out and started doing something different. So good on you, David.
It's a tough game, son.
Seems like Southern. So, moving on. So, he stopped his English career early. What stemmed from that was his wrist, right? Apparently, him working with regular doctors and mainstream type of stuff wasn't getting him the results that he wanted. So, he was doing a lot of dabbling in new age therapy and new age holistic healist.
Holistic.
There you go.
Holistic.
Glad you were able to
Repeat
jump in
after
there.
me.
Holistic
Healing.
healing. There you go. Holistic healing. So that's like the scream therapy. It's vibrations. It's crystals. It's you have other things too. Belief.
Burying a potato under a full moon.
Something like that. So anything to let his wrist heal. So he started dabbling in that. So he transitioned from the English Football League, and then he went to broadcasting, right? Because, he started going to sports, and he was a BBC on TV. So he wasn't just like some person like hiding in his mom's closet.
He wasn't a behind the scenes reporter. He was a
but also,
face for TV.
These people who maybe have these beliefs, you're like, well, where did these come from? They're in like the backwoods.
Yeah.
No one ever heard of them type of thing.
Yeah.
Nope. Mainstream 17 years as a broadcaster. So pretty important, pretty famous. And from there, he did a variety of things. But this is where something's a little off, right? Margaret Thatcher in the late 80s decided...
Prime Minister, right?
Prime Minister, yep, of UK. Because you had Scotland, Wales, and so on were all coming part of the United Kingdom, they decided to do a Commonwealth tax where it doesn't matter if you were rich, poor, or whichever, everyone had a set amount of taxes that they had to provide. And so some people thought that was unfair for the rich. And so David saw that.
Because the rich weren't paying enough?
Yeah, because it wasn't a ratio. It was just a set.
It was just a set amount. It's a lot for the lower class and hardly anything at all for the upper class.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. And so he started protesting this and refusing to pay it, where he was even very vocal on it, stating that, he'll rather go to jail than to pay this. And so BBC, which is, I don't think it's like directly tied to the government, right? But it is a well-known news organization where they have to communicate information to the people.
They have to represent the best. They are the face of Great Britain.
And they thought that his defiance put a bad face on BBC, and they wanted to separate themselves from it. So they separated themselves by separating him. Yep. So again, just a little bit thing, like you throw your 17 career for a cause and a belief, which is, noble.
I was like, that's
very
fine.
noble. But what that means is he is willing to commit to what he believes is true.
Follows he follows his beliefs with the iron fist.
Yeah. So that's actually a good quality, right?
Yeah.
So from there, he was also went into the Green Party. This is right before he got relieved from.
Wait, did he ever pay the tax?
Oh, yes, that's right. He did actually end up paying the tax because it was a law.
Okay.
So he actually did pay it, which was, I think, a little funny. But, principles, right?
Right.
So he eventually also joined the Green politics. He was actually a national spokesperson for the Green Party, which is obviously about the environment and making sure we're taking care of the earth, things of that nature.
All great things.
Yep. So he really became very conscious of the earth and how it's healing. And he wrote his second book now. So he first wrote it, he's still writing. It's called It Doesn't Have to Be Like This.
Son?
Earth?
No, it's a tough game, son. It doesn't have to be like that, son.
No, I would say it doesn't have to be like this, Earth. Like Earth, we could be better to you. Right? That's what I would think it as. It doesn't have to
be like this, Earth.
Yeah, but he didn't put the Earth in there, but... Yeah. His outlines on his views of everything. But this is 1989. And so that's an important year because I almost feel like while he was writing that book, whether through his research or through his commitment or through things, a lot of things were happening in 1989. He just got let go of BBC. Mm-hmm. He was writing his book. Mm-hmm. He's following his passion. And he felt, as he said, there was a presence that was following him.
And it wasn't the IRS.
And no, it wasn't the IRS. So it wasn't like a shadow people or like the government's like bugging my phone.
Which I'm going to talk about shadow people.
One day. That'll be awesome. No, so it wasn't like a schizophrenic where they're like seeing other people or they think that someone's there, but he was just felt a presence.
An omnipresence.
Yeah. He didn't state if it was, he didn't say if it was like a negative or a positive or a negative, just a presence. Right. And it followed around him for a full year. And so it came to a point when he entered a bookstore in 1990. He didn't hear a voice, but he felt a thought. And he was pulled through the bookstore to a section under New Age. And where his hands led him to a book. And the book was called Mind to Mind. It was published by a psychic named Betty Shine. What's your thoughts on that? Being directed to a book.
I've been directed to a book. There's usually a half-naked Highlander on the cover, though.
You were inspired.
I was led.
Yeah, sometimes my divining rod leads me to different areas. And you're like, why are you looking at these nude art photos? It's art, babe.
It's art.
It is art.
Remember that time you were trying to be funny and you showed me a picture of like a bunch of naked men?
Oh, I forgot which one.
You came up to me and you were like giggling and you handed me this book with all these naked men in it. And then I was like, ha, ha, ha. And you turned around to go put it away, but you couldn't because there was someone standing there.
Oh, yeah,
so you just ended up
just
walking around the bookstore with this book until you could put it away.
Yeah, that was embarrassing. I was not like David Icke where I'm like, who cares if people see me with this?
You were like, not that there's anything wrong with it.
Not that there's anything wrong with it.
You were just trying to be silly and it backfired.
It did backfire. So he looks at this book, right? And it talks about a lady named Betty Shine. Icke goes and visits her because, well, if you put me to the book, he read the book and he's like, I need to talk to this person. And during their meeting, she reveals to him, I don't know if she reveals or she just like says, like, I'm very important. I'm going to just, who knows, but communicate to this person. So she told him that he was sent to heal the earth.
She's revealing to him that he was sent to heal the earth.
Yep. Which falls in line with his Green Party, his book that he just wrote, his New Age thinking and so on, right? Sent to heal the earth. Now, keep in mind, at this point, it's not lizard
Was she being like metaphorical?
No.
Or was she being literal?
Probably literal. And she also stated that he was going to be famous, but would face opposition. You know how tarot card readers are. It's always like, you're going to go through some type of struggle. Yeah, no crap. I struggle to get out of bed sometimes. I mean,
and your lucky numbers are 5, 7, 13, and 2.
Yes. But he'll face opposition, and that the spirit world would communicate to him and explain and reveal information to him. Right. Okay. But she got really specific. She said,
and we know with failed prophecies, you always keep it vague.
Well, vague and specific prophecies have all failed.
Yeah.
So he would go to write 5 books in 3 years, she told him. And in 20 years, a new flying machine would allow you to go to wherever you wanted because time had no meaning.
Is this the
Uber?
The space Uber?
Who do we, what?
Ashtar.
Ashtar. Yeah, Uber. He may be coming around.
Galactic Uber driver?
Galactic Uber.
Or
traveling into where
spaceship shaped like a cloud. That's what I'm still aiming for.
That would be cool. So he got that information and he was like, man, that's right. I can be this. And then he started interpreting some of the feelings that he had and some of what he said he was spoken to or showed visions of. And so he started considering himself the son of the Godhead, and the Godhead being the infinite mind. Right. So that's
interesting. So not God,
or not the son of God, because in his eyes, everyone's the children of God. Right. He is just one of the son from the Godhead, except he can tap into the mind and the infinite mind of the collective conscious of the universe.
That's
bold.
It's a bold statement.
Yeah. So, and this does tie into a lot of conscious minds, whether it was with aliens and the orbs and trying to communicate and so on, right? A lot of these, there's a lot of telepathy and the conscious mind. Same thing if you go into look at psychedelics and LSD and so on, where it breaks your mind, so it allows you to actually connect to some of those conscious mind. A rabbit hole that we won't overly go into right now, but so many things just right there.
I was like, so many things. So psychedelics break your mind?
They allow you to break through the barriers that you put on yourselves and allows you to connect to the conscious universe. We'll talk about that. DMT is one of those big things, right? You hear Joe Rogan and some others talking about it all the time.
DMT?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I know it's like an extreme.
Do I need to start drugs?
We'll talk about all those things later on, but for right now, so just understand that that's how he saw himself.
Okay.
And a way to express that, because you know how when you are doing a new thing, you want to kind of commit to it. Well, how are you showing the outward to people that you're committing to it?
You go all in.
You go all in.
You sell your house
and you determine that turquoise is the color of positive energy, and you were turquoise all the time. And that's what he did. He wore a turquoise like jogging suit everywhere he went.
Bold.
Very bold, because it was positive energy, right? So
what type of material was this? It's like polyester?
Well, I think the material was just like a
velvet,
like a windbreaker. Oh, like literally a jogging suit.
Oh, because it's the '90s. It's the early '90s.
Early '90s, and it's England, so it probably rains.
Oh,
and it's windy, so it probably
this
looked
just got
super
good.
cool. So he's telling everyone, "Yep, look at me, turquoise." And he started his third book, and now this is specifically New Age base, and it's called The Truth Vibrations. Okay, and the vibrations is where he'll talk a little bit more about his thinkings of different dimensions, because if you look at vibrations, there's multiple things happening within the same sphere, but you just may not be present or attuned to it. But let's talk a little bit more about what he was doing around this time. So just a few months after he finished his book, he met another psychic named Deborah Shaw, and they began a relationship. And what do you think his wife thought of it at the time?
Oh.
Do you think she was upset, enlightened, angry?
I'm sure she was overjoyed.
Yeah, she blessed off on it. So Shaw started living with a couple, and they had a short-lived arrangement. But during the time, because they would travel together, all in turquoise, they would call it the turquoise triangle.
Sexy.
The turquoise menage a trois.
Menage a triangle.
Menage a triangle. That sounds odd. But so those are always weird, right? So again, when you have those type of relationships, it's just different, right? It's just different than the normal thought process.
How many times have you told me this is relationship goals?
Never.
Oh,
never. I don't need 3. I said I'll take 2. You twins. If you were duplicate, I'll take twins. I love you too much. I'll take 2 of you though.
Oh, okay.
My dreams I have like 5 of you. It's all the same. No, so now there's the turquoise triangle that is going around. During this time, less than a year later, he actually resigned from the Green Party because he told the Green Party he couldn't be the spokesperson for him anymore. Because he's walking around with 2 women, his wife, Linda, and his, I guess, Sarah, I don't even know what you call it. His
next wife, his bonus
his
wife,
spirit wife, I guess, would be Deborah. And they don't really talk a lot about Linda and how they met, by the way. I assume they got married when he was in BBC, when he was doing like a normal thing. But now it's obviously gone to the next level. But the Green Party was like, I don't know if I want you representing us because we're all about, tree hugging and everything. And you are just going a little bit too much.
Turquoise isn't quite green. It's not quite blue.
and he said, you know what? It's actually for the best because I'm about to be tremendous and increasingly controversial. Noted.
Increasingly,
that's what they stated.
Oh, he's going.
Even more reason to be like, yep, let's move on from you. Right?
He's buying tickets to the crazy train.
Yeah, and so later on in his personal life, right, he has a daughter with Deborah before he has a daughter with his actual wife.
His first wife.
That's his first wife, which is always sad.
That would break me. That would hurt my feelings so bad.
But you're doing it for Mother Earth.
Oh.
That's the true mother. Don't roll your eyes at me. It's like me saying, can we have these other 2 ladies in? If not for me, do it for your country.
Yes.
Do it for Mother Earth.
Oh, I love Mother Earth too. That's the problem.
So ultimately, how he became more controversial is he had a big news conference, because he revealed to the world that in 1997, now this is 1991, but in 97, the world would end. And he revealed himself to be the son of the Godhead. So most people were like, what are you talking about?
So he revealed this on national TV.
Yes, he set up a conference with him and his wives, and I think his daughters were there too. And he said the world's going to end in 1997 because he believed that the inner earth was being destabilized because the oil was being removed from under the seabed. And so that was going to cause a bunch of hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, in New Orleans. He was going to cause like eruptions or, land to just mass and explode. So basically
all the
Cuba.
Friction due to lack of oil.
Pretty much. Right. And so all these things were going to happen in 1997. And I don't think he had like a solution. He was just saying, it's going to end. You all put this on Mother Earth.
I wonder how he got such a specific date.
Remember, he's being fed information because he is the God. He's the son of the Godhead. So he is hearing this from the conscious mind, and they're telling them, "Hey, you're being bad to the earth, and your earth is going to destroy. So you need to warn people to let them know that the earth is going to be destroyed." So the earth didn't get destroyed. Spoiler alert.
Oh,
yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah. And so immediately after his press conference and him going everything, then other people were like, hey, you're a pretty famous person. You used to be the spokesperson for the Green Party. So I guess it's kind of green. Why don't we have you on the show and you could tell us a little bit more about your godheadness? And so,
Godheadnicity.
Yeah. So BBC.
Godheadism.
Yeah. So BBC actually brought him back as a guest, not as a broadcaster, but just like as a
guest.
A guest. Right. And on there, he doubled down on what he is, the son of the Godhead, and everyone in the audience started laughing at him. The person who was doing the main interview was laughing at him.
They were kind of probably dragging him through the mud.
Pretty much. And I watched it, and it was almost like him saying, well, you're telling him you're telling everyone you're the son of God. Are you Jesus? And he's like, well, no, I'm not.
So
no, we're all sons of God. Yeah,
they were feeding the audience
his crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they're definitely all against him. And that was his, so he did the main, the small reveal. Then he did, apparently here, he wanted to be the big reveal. And after that, he got so ridiculed. And everyone, he said that he couldn't even go to a pub or wherever else without being basically laughed out of the city.
And I actually admire people who do that.
Who's convicted?
Yes.
Fictions.
It's brave. It's a brave move.
So, okay. So
I admire him a little bit for this. Let's
yeah,
just
so
see. I don't.
This goes back to he's very he has no filter, I guess I would say, right? Mm-hmm. No bonds in terms of I can't do this. But he did say it was his worst part of his life. But to him, he revealed this as this is the challenges and
that were predicted to come to pass,
right?
I'm living my destiny.
He's living his destiny. So he's like, well, the earth isn't going to collapse for another handful of years. So what can I do in the meantime? I can listen more to this, thought, the Godhead, and write more things down. And so as he was thinking it, he wrote his fourth book, or his next book, called The Robots' Rebellion in 94. And this is the book that everyone stated that he was very anti-Semitic in this thing. So in here,
that's not a good
he starts talking that based off of vibrations and space, he starts saying that there is an interdimensional race of reptilians, similar to the Anunnaki, that have hijacked Earth and were genetically modifying humans. They are able to be a hybrid race of space shape-shifting reptilians based off the Babylonian Brotherhood.
I think I know a few.
Yeah. And so he was saying based off these vibrations, they're almost kind of living in the same world, and they can go in and out and some other different things. He had a couple theories. Dimensions. Like there's I think as parallel universes.
Right.
And if you're just attuned to it, you can kind of travel in and out.
If you know how to listen to them, and if you know how to control them, you can kind of come and go as you please.
Yes.
Can you be on more than one at the same time?
I would say no.
I don't.
So he had that as where one of the origins were for where these reptilian races came from. But what he stated is that
alternate dimension.
These races came hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they started out in the Mesopotamia, right, in the Babylonian area or Iraq, and they started to feed on some of the negative energy that was off the world. And they even claimed that they created Adam. They created humans.
The first man. They created Adam.
And when they created them, they started to put their blood. So all the kings and certain really famous individuals, these Anunnaki, started putting their blood into some of those kings and started influencing them and genetically modifying them so that they can kind of lead their rule.
Was their blood like a controlling agent, or was it
It may not have been a controlling as much as maybe they may be a little bit smarter. They may be a little bit more heightened senses, right? Things like that, I believe. I did not read all of his books, but that was it in a nutshell. And so because he thinks that a lot of these famous individuals were quote unquote lizard people, he started offending a lot of people when he starts talking about a lot of the famous people, especially back in the 90s, I guess, were Jewish. And so he started claiming that there was a lot of Jewish people that were all because they were globalists, they're elites, they were wealthy, they were apparently trying to manipulate the media and everything else. And so he was just like,
was it
all the Jewish people are lizard people.
Was it a coincidence that they were Jewish, or was he really anti-Semitic? Yeah.
So he was going broad, but a lot of the people he was focusing on his first book were the Jewish.
But he never said it's Jewish people.
He just said it's not the Jewish. Oh, no. We love the Jewish. But a lot of the Jewish people that you're talking about and that I'm talking about, they're all lizard people. So they're all bad. So he claims that he's not anti-Semitic, but he just saw a lot of the Jewish people as lizards. But
there was also more people besides just like other cultures, races, ethnicities, beliefs that were lizard people.
Yes.
Okay. It's
so
just a big majority.
A big majority.
Okay.
So that's where he starts claiming his book for all that stuff. So some people were like, wait a second. I feel like we've heard this a little bit before. This doesn't seem like the original story of lizard people or the Anunnaki and so on. And so you have some people who were explaining that Icke's reptilian idea was almost an adaptive of a person named Zakarian Sitchin's. Okay. He wrote a book in 1976 called The 12th Planet. And Sitchin suggests that these ancient astronauts created the ancient Sumerian culture, and those astronauts were known as the Anunnaki, right? Which is a race of ETs from the planet called of Nibiru.
Nibiru!
Oh, you recognize that?
They're from Nibiru?
They're from Nibiru. What do you know about Nibiru?
That's the failed prophecy. It was supposed to run into us in 2011.
Oh, is that
2012?
Is that where NASA was telling them
it doesn't exist,
so please stop? Oh yeah, the 9th planet in the system.
Yes,
Nibiru.
Planet Nibiru, Planet X.
Planet Nibiru was not created, but first brought up.
Totally made up by a bunch of nerds.
Well, at least in 1976, the planet Nibiru was brought into in this book, right?
It ties. Did you even know it was going to tie?
Apparently not. No, but the Anunnaki ties into a lot of different religious and other conspiracies or just practices because of their influence. The Sumerian race as a whole were well advanced, right? So keep in mind, they're one of the. I'm going to go a little bit of a rabbit hole of what the Sumerians / the Anunnaki are, and then how maybe David Icke potentially pulled from that and is using that in his thought process or conspiracy or the truth. So probably the Sumerians, probably not. The Sumerians were actually one of the first advanced civilizations, right? Right. And this is around 4500 BC. Now, keep in mind, for contextual purposes, right? So the Old Testament, Noah, all these Old Testament stuff was around the 2500
BC
plus BC, right, and earlier. Okay, so these individuals are in the 4500.
Oh, so way
BC,
even 2000
so like 2,000 years
before.
Before those type of cultures, right? The first civilized culture, but it was beyond just culture, right? They created the lunar calendar. They created the first writing. They had the first epic poem that was written down.
Ooh, an epic poem.
An epic poem. They're, I guess, the only poem, right? But they had the wheel, the plow, the irrigation system. They created all of these different things during the time, right?
This is very otherworldly.
Or it's just the human race, but it's all this stuff was taking place just in this one centralized area, and a lot of the scientists or whichever
alien civilization.
Well, humans, we'll go into that, but most of the world at the time was Neanderthals and just a lot of really undeveloped humans kind of wandered around. So it separates them from the pack of this advanced civilization, right? Yeah. So this is also, if you remember one of my favorite movies, True Lies.
True Lies is one of your favorite.
Remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger goes as an undercover, like, I'm I'm an antiquities.
Oh, antiquities dealer, yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things that they're looking at where they're hiding these missiles in is some statues from the Mesopotamian where it's like almost like a male centaur with wings.
Yeah.
That is exactly what they think that the Anunnaki. They use that in their
really? They think they're like a centaur?
Well, they don't think they're there, but they use that in
Or
some of the
minotaur.
symbolism.
No, centaur.
But it was part of the symbolism that they used. Right. So that was part of the Sumerian race because they're showing some of the pictures. I'm like, oh, I recognize that.
from a Schwarzenegger movie.
Yeah. So there you go. Just want to throw that out there. But no, so they think, or in this book, they believe that the Anunnaki came to Earth for gold. Gold specific, because apparently their home world's atmosphere was too hazardous. And if you don't know, do you know that gold has properties that it can actually repair and damaged ozone layers? And it can proven,
Scientifically proven?
Yep. And that gold can be used to ward off or prevent radiation waves from penetrating.
I have heard that actually.
That's why
or something along that line.
Yeah, that's why NASA uses gold sheets on some of their space equipment and so on. So it's kind of odd that gold was why they needed for their atmosphere and other reasons. So it kind of connects there slightly. So either way, they came here to settle. And not only did they come here, they actually created, because they do a lot of genetic manipulation, but they created and brought another race with them called the EGG. EGG. EGG.
It sounds like a sushi roll.
It does. And these EGGs were really not smart. They're a labor race.
A labor race?
They
brought slaves?
They brought slaves to
Assholes.
mine the gold.
Assholes.
And then eventually, a lot of the EGGs were like, this is kind of messed up. And they revolted. And a lot of them were killed. And so Anu, who was a ruler at the time of the Anunnaki, said that they needed to engineer another race, a slave race that were actually a little bit smarter and were able to be manipulated, controlled a little bit more. And so they created a hybrid race between the local Homo sapiens of the time, who were just kind of hanging around,
Earth people.
and the current Earth people, and the Anunnaki. And by that manipulation, they created what they named in their text
Oh my
as
gosh.
Adamu, which is which translates to Adam.
What are what are the creatures that Saruman creates?
Oh, I should know this. The Urukai. Urukai. Yes. So they didn't create a warrior race.
Is Tolkien right?
You can manipulate. Yes, that's what.
I have my hands over my mouth in excitement.
So excitement, yes. But this is not a warrior race. But yes, it's under the same thing where they were breeding humans. Yeah. So they created from the local Neanderthals and from the godlike race, and they created humans, which I thought was really interesting that they called them the Adamu, which means
is the derivative of Adam, or that means.
And keep in mind, this was created in text 4500 BC.
When was
Old Testament was 2500. So the Old Testament, when it was created,
when are they saying that Adam was created?
Well, here it's 4500. Created the first actual human, not the Homo sapien monkey race that's on the world.
So Darwinism is wrong.
No, the Darwin was there, but that's where the spike came from. They had intervention. So they were growing, and you had these Neanderthals, cave people, whatever.
So it's both happening.
Yeah. So they were already on the planet. The godlike came in and said, I'm going to take this Neanderthal and I'm going to inject them with some of our blood. And now they went from a Neanderthal where they could barely think or whatever to an actual human, upright, everything going. Yeah. They created us, the current humans. Yeah. So, but keep in mind, the Bible was written 2500, whichever.
Yeah.
And all the stories. So this predates all that. And they're already saying that they created Adam, human. I just thought that was pretty interesting.
That is very interesting.
Early man originally had no choice but to work. And did you know that the original term worship, if you translate it, actually means work for? And so the humans worked for the Anunnaki, or in translation, whichever, called it as worship.
The Anunnaki.
For the Anunnaki. They worship the Anunnaki, which means they actually, they worship, but it's really, you're working for the Anunnaki. They're the slaves. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So, and the Anunnaki were actually pretty large compared to humans.
This is very Prometheus.
Yes, it's very Prometheus. 100%.
Okay. I'm going to put this out there.
Go.
Watch Prometheus.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100%. If you're a fan of the Alien series.
Yes. Well, even if you're not a fan of the Alien series.
Even not. Yeah. Prometheus is kick-ass.
Yeah.
And
don't put spoilers or anything.
I won't. But okay. Prometheus.
Yeah. So the next piece is when they realized that for the gold mines and everything else, they needed a little bit of a larger workforce because they're expanding and Earth is pretty large. And so they realized that their laborers were originally sterile. And so because they had to create them, like the Urukai, right? They had to create them. Ooh. And they're like, this isn't really meeting what we need. So now let's re-engineer where they can actually breed themselves. Procreate. And so they had a new set of humans re-engineered, and those humans were sent out to the world to populate. Similar, what people have related this to is Adam and Eve being casted out of the Garden of Eden to populate the world. Interesting. I think that's interesting.
What was the point of populating the world, though, to the Anunnaki?
So they can get more slaves. They needed more people to help get material and so on.
So that's really what they were, just breeding a slave force.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, it goes to like where Act Like the Sumerian or whichever was kind of like the equivalent of the Garden of Eden.
Right.
Where they created Adam. And then they eventually said, hey, I cast you out and go populate. So it's very similar to some of the biblical and religious texts.
I think we just need to put a little note in there that we're not saying that we believe this stuff. We don't want people to get the wrong idea.
No, we're just explaining. I think it's interesting, though. So, maybe we do. Who knows? So, eventually, though, so you had some of these Anunnaki who, now that you have humans who can breed, they actually dabbled in some human, not menage a trois, but, bumping uglies. Oh. And so the Anunnaki that breeded with humans were actually called the Nephilims. Have you ever heard that word before? Or the giants of old. Oh. These created giant races. Oh. Think of David and Goliath. Oh. Goliath was in terms a Nephilim. So when you see these like giant bones and so on,
I love giants.
Yeah, because the Anunnaki were already giants, and so when they had a little bit smaller, but again, still another giant race. So I know I'm going to need deep into this Anunnaki stuff because I just think it's pretty interesting.
That is very interesting.
But so the leader of the Anunnaki was like, "Whoa, wait a second. We never want humans to rule." And when we're mixing up and they're having all these Nephilims, he said he would dilute their power and their knowledge and their control. So after releasing and seeing the population going up more and some of these Nephilims, he decided that, we needed to reduce some of the human population and get it under control.
The flood.
So every 3,600 years, Nibiru gets close to the earth.
Shut up.
And so when it was getting close to the earth, this last go around, it ended up melting the ice caps and reducing the magnetic field around the world and you called it the Great Flood.
Yeah.
Yep. And so one of the Sumerian cities came under the Persian Gulf, and some of the leaders of the Anunnaki wanted to avoid the destruction. And so they actually got on their spaceship and went back to Nibiru as it was coming close to it. So that's how they were able to, they departed and went back to Nibiru.
So how long were they on Earth then, theoretically? So they came to Earth and were here for years? Thousands of years?
Thousands. Not even thousands. They were even estimated like 200,000 years.
Oh. And then as the planet came close, they decided.
Or if you look at it now, what everyone keeps saying like 7,000 years from now. Think about that 7,000 years, because that's around that 4,500 where you actually had real civilizations. You had humans, right, prior to. So before, so maybe like in the 7,000 BC, maybe earlier. They've been here for a while. Mind blown. So think of this too, right? So we had some of the leaders who went back to Nibiru, but you had some Anunnaki who wanted to, because they liked Earth, right? They
became attached.
They became attached. Yeah. Some of them in their writings were stated that they decided to observe and be watchers. And they left in their what was described as their celestial boats that orbited the Earth.
Celestial boats that orbit. I don't even know what to think about that.
Spaceships.
I know.
That's what you need to think about.
Celestial boats. I like that way better.
Yeah, they call because they don't know spaceships, right? Celestial boats. But so you have some
it's
Anunnaki.
Like hot tub time machine.
Yeah, but you have some that were again all these orbs and all these spacecraft.
Oh, the orbs
they're
people are seeing.
watching.
Oh,
hello, watchers, space aliens.
I'm paying attention.
So, and before they left, they gave instructions to their chosen ones to build boats similar to Noah. And keep in mind, this all happened prior to the Old Testament or whichever, but the Old Testament and all that pulls from a lot of these things. Garden of Eden, being cast out, the Great Flood, all of it's in all these religious texts around. And it's been proven to multiple areas that the world was flooded and so on and a lot of different things. But in here, it states that they told someone about, like Noah too. And in their writings, they said that they would have 7 days of storms. And then after the storm settled, there was 40 days of rain, which literally almost quotes from the Bible, which is just interesting. And that's why people are saying that the Sumerian texts and so on are trying to be hidden because they don't want it to be exposed, and shows that that's where it influenced certain cultures and religions and so on.
I heard that also.
Yeah. So, getting back, so the pyramids and some of these other features that were around in the Middle East and so on, the pyramids, they actually aligned to certain stars. So if you go into a pyramid or some pyramids, and you look up, it actually all about constellations and so on, and all the big, like a Gemini and all those different
the
things.
astrological signs.
Yes, all of that was
Astrology.
created during the Sumerian time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all about space. It's all about stars. It all connects here.
Yeah.
Right. And so eventually, again, you had a lot of them leave, but they want to leave kings on Earth, right, to be almost like the Anunnaki's emissaries, kind of like liaisons. Like, we're going to be watching from afar, but I want you to kind of do all this thing. And so eventually those royal bloodlines were genetically manipulated by the Anunnaki to be smarter, better, and so on. And that would potentially explain why some of the nobility and royalty were strongly opposed to interclass breeding, because that's where like royalty blood and the bloodlines, and we have a lot of different like pharaohs or whichever.
Chalk that up to snobbery.
It could be, but how they explain it is, no, it's actually literally bloodlines from gods and descendants.
And they don't want to dilute them.
They don't want to dilute it, right? Because they may not be continuing the genetic engineering anymore. But that's just kind of interesting, like the royal bloodline and everything else from whether any religion, just anything where it's like, the kings were literally from God.
From God.
Or these
That's true.
extraterrestrials.
It has to start somewhere. Yeah.
So, and so they believe that when Nibiru comes close to Earth again, keep in mind every 3,600 years, so it's probably getting close.
No, it was just supposed to come by in 2012.
Oh, I guess we missed it. I guess so. Well, then, man.
Crap. Actually, hold on. I don't remember.
Maybe we did miss it then.
Yeah.
Well, crap. That was anticlimactic.
Didn't you listen to the failed prophecies?
Yeah, I did.
You were in the room with me.
You had 200.
I went over like 12.
So, yes. Yeah, I do remember that one. So either way, they were saying that when it does return, so now this is, keep in mind, this is written in 1976. So again, another failed prophecy. Right. That the Anunnaki would return to rule humans once again when it got close. So there you go for the Anunnaki. And NASA at one point in 2017 stated officially that they recognized that there was evidence. This is 2017, not what time it was 2012 or earlier, right? Where NASA was like, this planet doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, NASA officially said that they recognized that there was evidence for existence of the 9th planet in our solar system.
I heard that, but they were calling it sounded like a car's name. What was it?
Oh, I don't know.
Chassis.
But that 9th planet is what they're actually saying was Nibiru, where before NASA was like, well, we don't believe it. Well, you don't believe in NASA. So now, with all that being said, let's go back to Icke's claim, right?
Okay.
All the same type of thing, right? You got this reptilian race or Anunnaki type of thing, right? The bloodlines. So now
the
everyone,
they're larger and reptilian.
Well, in Icke's world, they're reptilian. And the thing that in history book,
they're just
not
larger.
history, but and from that 2000
ancient texts,
the 12th planet text, they're just larger people, right? So But now with the bloodline thing, so he's all on board where the rulers, the elites, the 1% of the 1% of the 1% have this alien bloodline. And not only do they have the bloodline, they have the ability to shapeshift.
Bullshit.
And they're controlling everything. So now that we know a little bit of the history.
Starbucks.
I don't know what that means.
Starbucks. Star.
And Bucks Money is controlling.
Oh my God. And their sign is a double-tailed mermaid.
Mermaids actually are one of the famous
reptilians.
They're from their underground. Okay.
Nailed it.
So let's talk a little bit.
Debunked.
So
we're coming for you, Starbucks. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So with all that, Ike's claiming a lot of the Jewish people were reptilians. And so his publisher said, you know what? That's very anti-Semitic. We're going to drop you from our publishing list. So like, from there, he had now everything from like this 1995 type thing is now all self-published. And the Green Party actually kicked him out because of all of their anti-Semitic books. So everyone is now distancing from him. And this is in 95, right? So between 95 and 97, guess what was supposed to happen?
The end of the world.
Yeah. And it didn't. So spoiler alert, it did not. Oops. So he stopped. He almost like switches where he doesn't really talk about the Earth anymore because Earth is still here.
Earth betrayed him.
I feel like he maybe thought that the interpretations were a little bit off. So then he went to this. He doubled down more on the lizards and the conspiracies about that. Let's talk about some of the things that he thinks, right? Because he thinks that there's reptilian bloodline. Literally,
so he dropped the improbable end of the world to go with the more likely lizard people.
Yeah, because I think it's harder to prove. he realized that you can't be specific. You got to be broad.
Vague, if you
because you got to let it drag on, right? You can't say tomorrow it's going to end. Well, then you don't have any time to profit from that.
Yeah,
my opinion. So he was saying that out of all the presidents, 43 of the American presidents were reptilian. A lot of the British government, reptilian. Canada, reptilian. Name something else.
Canada, reptilian.
Yeah, the Sumerian kings,
Napoleon,
reptilian. Right? Celebrities, Justin Bieber, reptilian.
Shut.
Hey, anyone with influence.
Whatever he can be.
Anyone with influence. So the Rockefellers, European aristocrats.
Capone.
Maybe. I wouldn't really go there.
Patrick Swayze.
So a lot of these.
You need to answer that.
What, Patrick Swayze?
Yeah.
No. I'm going to say no.
Oh, thank God.
Right?
Okay.
But he also claims that he's individually have seen people in like one-on-ones where people's eyes were turned jet black.
We brought this up earlier.
Oh, we brought this up earlier.
This is crap.
Or there's some YouTube videos, right, where there's a reporter.
Crap.
It's a reporter.
Crap.
While they're talking, their eyes flicker.
Crap. Okay.
And what did you have the explanation? You're talking about why does it look like
involuntary eye movement. It's called nystagmus.
Mm-hmm. Elaborate a little bit. What does it do? What does it look like?
Do
you think that was created by lizard people to explain why their eyes sometimes involuntary?
There are certain conditions where your eyes will either twitch. There's a couple different things they can do. They can twitch back and forth. They can do circular patterns like a pendulum. Mm-hmm. They can go to the sides. They can like roll back, and it's all like involuntary, spontaneous. And the people who have it and deal with it their whole lives don't even really notice it's happening.
So, I think that was created by lizard people to explain these things. So we'll talk a little bit more about how do you recognize a lizard person, because YouTube has some things, right?
Right.
So he believes that everyone who's famous pretty much is, because they act like everything is connected to these things. So World Health Organization, NATO, UN.
There's a hypothesis, or not a hypothesis, there's a theory that elites or famous celebrities and people like that are reincarnated, because the more, I'm trying to think exactly what the theory is. It was like the more times you've lived, every time you return, you're smarter, more intelligent, more talented.
And all the Hollywood actors are smarter, more intelligent, more talented.
I guess you could say.
I guess. They are beautiful. So what's the purpose of all these reptilians, right? So Ike believes that they want to keep our humanity trapped, our five senses of reality, right? So they want us to be distracted and in this like negative type of state so that they can feed off their negative energy created by fear and hate.
Like it.
Kind of like it. So that's not part of the 12th planet or the Anunnaki or anything like this. This is totally Icke's piece.
Theory.
So that's why he wants us to, he thinks the world is being crafted to an extent where we're in a constant state of wars, genocide, slaughter, animals, but just also anything that creates negative energy levels, such as sexual perversions, black magic rituals, sacrifices, and stuff like that, right? So all these different things is what the lizard people also do. So they don't just like manipulate you; they also do blood sacrifices and everything else because because they get all that negative energy and so on, right? This leads to theories about they are engaging in pedophilia, and cannibalism. So one of the things that talking about these blood rituals and so on is Princess Diana. They believe that the Queen of England is a lizard person because they quoted her as saying that her family was lizards. They're not humans is what she said. And so, you know, how sometimes you say like an off comment, but people will take that and be like verbatim quote,
my mother was a witch.
Yeah, my mom's a witch. Right. And so she said
Princess
that.
Diana said, they're not human.
They're not human. Quote. So everyone ran with that. And so.
But I wonder what she really meant. Okay, anyway.
So Icke, during his research of the royal family, found a witness who said that she was Diana's friend. And she stated that Diana confided in her that none of the royal family had died in a very long time. So they're older than what they believe. And sometimes they recreate themselves using little pieces of flesh while they keep cloning themselves over and over. Gross and
crazy.
Crazy a little bit, right? So because she's she was her friend for 9 years, but can we validate that?
Oh, is there no?
Well, Princess Diana is dead. Spoiler alert, just so you know.
She died.
So I don't know if she should defend herself. And this person that Icke found, this Christine Fitzgerald, was of course a natural healer too.
Can anybody confirm that she was indeed a friend of Princess Diana?
I think during his research, there's probably something that there have like some type of connections.
They had some sort of interaction.
I'm sure there had to be some type of interaction, right? Because she said that she was with her for 9 years. And this was created, or not created, but the interview.
I can say anything I want to say about somebody that passed and nobody can say otherwise.
I created a book called The Biggest Secret. And she's one of his main eyewitnesses. And so what else did she interact with Princess Diana? They said that during one of these ceremonies, these blood ceremonies, she was under mind control by the reptilians. Diana and herself. They were both, because they would go through these things together to do these rituals. And they saw that Queen Elizabeth II, she was there, quote, I have seen her sacrifice people and eat their flesh and drink their blood. One time she got so excited with bloodlust, she didn't cut the victim's throat from left to right, which is normal practice. She just went crazy, stabbing and ripping the flesh after she shape changed into a reptilian. And what color do you think that Queen Elizabeth's skin was?
Green.
No, that's too basic. She was
magenta.
It was white. It was a white with a long reptilian face. Now, some would say that because she went crazy with bloodlust, let's talk about, well, what type of blood do they drink? Well, in these sacrifices, when you have extreme fear, panic, it actually causes a kind of like a chemical reaction
in your
right?
body, yeah.
Where it
like
releases
adrenaline when you're in.
Yeah, it's actually called adrenochrome. Right? Okay. It's a chemical that's released when a subject has been exposed to the highest form of fear and trauma a human can ever experience. So just messed up stuff. Yeah, and awesome. So they almost consider it's called like the cocaine of psychoactives, and it's similar to LSD, but it's actually extracted from the base of a spinal cord. And that's where it's produced, right?
So
the neck from a child type of thing.
So what does it do to you?
It causes you to have LSD. So like just so hallucination, or it allows you to connect with your conscious mind. Yep. So you have a better connection to it. And because this LSD, which may have caused the queen to rip out the flesh rather than just do the normal whichever, because
Is that what
it
caused
causes them
Ozzy
to go crazy.
Osbourne to bite off the
Maybe.
head of the bat?
Potential. But this adrenochrome is one of those big things where people think that, yes, it's been commonly, quote unquote, used in like Illuminati blood rituals or other rituals where you drink blood and they pass it around. And so most societies, well, where did you get the blood? How did you get this blood extracted from a child? Even whether they sacrifice it there,
can you test it to see how much adrenaline is in it? I'm sorry.
Hold up. Whether they do it there at the ceremony or if it's imported. We'll talk about that more. But go ahead with your question.
So if you take blood,
Yeah,
someone's blood, can you test it to see how much adrenochrome is in it?
I'm sure you could.
Or is it? It's from the spinal cord.
Yeah.
So it's in the spinal
released.
fluid.
Well, it's part. That's where they
So how's it in
extract
the
it.
blood?
That's where they extract it. Yeah. So maybe it's.
I wish I was a doctor.
I wish I was a doctor. I'm sure it's kind of both. I think it's extracted. Maybe they.
Well, because it's like when they take your blood, they can take the plasma from it. They can separate it.
Yeah. I'm not a doctor.
I don't know
if they mix
okay.
it, but either way, act like there's just this either in the blood or they mix it with blood to as a catalyst, right? As a source. So you may be saying, well, why don't we hear more about this? Well, guess what? We had a chance to expose them, Ike said. And in 1990, Vice President Al Gore was actually apprehended at the airport because he was carrying blood. And they found out that his blood was actually adrenochrome, is what his suitcase or whatever was full of. And an eyewitness who was watching him was like, he had a look of, oh my God, I'm caught.
But wasn't he flying like private jets and stuff?
He's ex-vice president at this point, so I'm sure
at this point he's ex-vice president.
Yeah, so this is afterwards. So maybe he's just taking a trip from point A to point B. Who knows? Maybe
Coach, no.
First class. Who knows? But either way,
would he still have a bodyguard? They wouldn't.
He may. Him. Who knows? But regardless, it never made the news, or they brushed it off and said, "Oh."
So then, how do we know about it?
Because it was in the news. They just brushed it off. They stated that he was a hemophylactic, and that's why he had blood. And then you never heard from it again.
I wish he said that he was a vampire. Okay, yeah.
Hemophylactic. So when you're talking about these things being transported or whichever, right? So some believe that there are football field size adrenochrome farms out there with thousands and thousands of like third world refugee children that are being just processed for adrenochrome, where they're being subjected to fear, pedophilia.
I'm gonna Liam Neeson it up over there.
Yeah, huge football fields. Like, so, and when you talk about like these,
pick your poison: John Wick, Liam Neeson,
all of them,
Braveheart.
Yeah. No, but like
some Viking.
You hear all about all these like the child trafficking and pedophilia. It's more than just it's all one and the same, and you can get two birds with one stone. Some people just like it for the children piece. Some like it because it's used in rituals. Some think that they're actually not just used in individual rituals, which sometimes happens, but you actually have like processing plants, like a whole factory.
Oh, that is so
children.
Terrible. As crazy as this sounds, there's probably I can almost say with certainty that there's places like this.
Yeah, there is.
I know that there's people who pay to kill people. There's child trafficking. There's
Hustle, right? Like the old movie.
Yeah, it's a real thing. There is cannibalism. There's groups that engage in cannibalism to this day. I just watched a documentary on it. Mm-hmm. So for this to be a thing, as awful as it sounds, it probably is a thing.
Yeah. It's crazy. We are not privy to a lot of those type of scenarios and information, right? But if you think about all the things that potentially could happen with whether it's Illuminati or whether it's the reptilians or whether it's just rich people who have perversions, right? There's a lot of things that are going on, and some may think that they may create conspiracies to justify, or there may be four different things that's going on. But yes, child trafficking is an issue.
Child trafficking 100% is an issue. I wonder if this plant thing is also.
So let's move away from the torturing of children.
I was like, that's so sad.
That's super sad.
My heart is hurting now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Well, I don't want to undermine it. It's a thing. It needs to be.
Yeah, it's a horrible, horrible thing. So we'll finish up with Diana's. So their marriage, right? Prince Charles was actually had a mistress, right?
Yeah.
Camilla, right? And so this informant or this friend who was the interviewer said that the royal family actually pulled Diana aside, and in another ritual where she was being, brainwashed or so on, basically had them tell her that she was just going to be there for
Insemination.
Insemination. You're there just to give us an heir, but her true wife is going to be Camilla, right?
His true wife is going to be Camilla.
Yep. And then shortly afterwards, Princess Diana was killed or died in a car accident. But there's a lot of people who believe that she was actually murdered. So Charles could officially then, after Diana already gave a couple of kids, could marry Camilla, which he later did marry in 2005.
Why, though? Because Princess Diana was of a bloodline, a pure bloodline, like we were talking about before. She was a princess of Wales.
Yeah, so now we have the kids, but now the kids are already grown up.
And so
we don't need her
in
anymore.
Proper bloodline.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it was just to like make Charles happy?
Who knows?
Or was there a point behind
we would never know,
Okay.
right? They just think so, right? And one of the quotes potentially out of context, right? One of the family friends of Diana stated that, so now Charles can marry his, quote, crocodile wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of odd because if she is a crocodile, wouldn't you want to have a crocodile child? It's interesting. I don't get that. But so, again, context out of...
That could be taken out of context. How
Yeah.
some people say like, oh, she's a snake or he's a dog. Every
Yeah.
culture says something differently.
Yeah, so that was a majority of his conspiracies. Is you have all these royalties who are all blood, drinking blood, doing sacrifices, doing all these rituals in the dark, and no one knows about it. And not a lot of people was following his conspiracy. And then about 2016 is when things started picking back up for him, where people started to, I don't know, it's just the internet, Twitter, whatever. He started getting more involved and more people started to kind of follow his readings and so on. And so in there, I guess his publicist or his PR team, public relations team was like, you know what? It's great that you're talking about these global conspiracies because everyone likes global conspiracies. Yeah. Just kind of hold off on the lizard people. And so, strangely enough, he does conspiracy talks, but he doesn't really talk about lizard people anymore. He backs away from lizard people. So now he just says he just talks as the people controlling. Right?
Are his thoughts changing on lizard people?
No, I think he's just trying to profit more. And so more people like the idea of just that global conspiracy compared to that there's lizard people who are trying to feed off negative energy. All right. And then lastly, he's talking about, well, so how do they control us? How does the lizard people or how does the elites try to control? And they want us to consistently be distracted so they're not seeing the big picture. So that's why we're constantly talking about race. We're constantly talking about categories and identity, whether you're a Democrat or you're a Republican or you're pro-choice or you're anti-choice or you're gay or whatever, right? And so there's a lot of infighting so that we're just distracted, right? And he says, the governments, it doesn't matter who is elected, Republican, Democrat, it doesn't really matter because it all feeds up to the hierarchy, right?
Right.
And so there's a bunch of unseen, still a lot of secret societies who control governments, and why you have a lot of secret societies instead of just one big one is because everything's compartmentalized. So some of them don't know the big picture. They only know their piece of the pie or a piece of a puzzle, let's say. They don't know what the whole puzzle looks like, but they know what their piece and their role in it is. And so therefore you have a lot of the different sub-secretive groups. With that too, he goes into a lot of conspiracy theories of things happen in the world because it's created by whether it's the Illuminati or the 1% of the 1% elite, right? It's false problems. So we are going to create a crisis so that we can eventually get our end goal. And so one of the reports
we need C.
Yeah.
So we are going to create A.
So that we can solve it with B and then ultimately lead to C. No, that's great. That's a great point. Okay. We want C. So in order to get there, I need A to be the catalyst or the problem. And then we're going to get to C by doing B. And then after B gets solved or resolved, it will allow us to do C.
To get our what we went for.
Yeah. And so as example, there was a document that was written prior to 9/11 where it was talking about in a 5-year time taking over 7 countries to get either oil or get some profiting.
America would, or just
in America. Yeah, okay. America would. So again, that's the C. Hey, how do we get all these oils, or how do we get this influence or reduce other people's influence, right? Uh-huh. And so they identified 7 countries in a 5-year time frame to get it. And they're like, in order to get it though, we really need a catalyst. We really need something big to happen in order to justify us doing B to get C.
Are they saying that 9/11 was the catalyst?
Less than a year later, 9/11 happened. And everyone who wrote that book, you had 6 predominant Republicans who were in there. All of them were actually still current members of the Bush administration.
Oh.
Yeah.
And he's a lizard person.
Oh, yeah, of course. but like everyone in there, now it's a true document. It's actually, I think, neocon or something like that, where the Republicans created this thing. Yeah. And so you have Republicans who wanted to be overt and do like military actions to take over. And then you had the Democrat side who were using political influence, such as Soros, who's this wealthy billionaire who donated $32 billion. George Soros. So I probably pronounced that wrong.
Solos?
Yes.
I don't know.
2 S's. But he donated $32 billion to a open society foundation that he created. And what they do is they actually influence countries within and almost like change regimes within. And so we had a couple countries that had their government overthrown, partially due to the support of people like George Soros type of thing. So just things to think about, right? Why did this happen? And what's the end game? And is what they're stating actually the end game?
This open, what is it?
Oh, the Open Society Foundation.
Open Society Foundation. It's still around. Still active.
Yeah. And he also influences, like he's a big Democrat supporter and so on, right? So he puts his money around a lot to try to change certain policies and things like that. So they're just talking about how all these things are happening behind the scenes, and they want to keep us down with like the illusion of freedom, but because people who feel like they're free aren't going to rebel.
I back that up.
Yeah. So I get that. I support that in terms of like, there's probably some type of, even though they may overtly claim that by doing this, we're going to go after A, but there's second and third impacts, right? You're still going to get B, C, D, E. Right. And guess what? C may be the real reason why you're doing it, but you're showcasing A because, A is what's public support or whatever, but in reality, you're doing it for C. Yeah. And there's just other benefits that happen with it. And so lastly, he's talking about like creation and so on. And then he starts getting a little bit where like now it's more than just government control and influence. It's how do we actually put a cell phone in your hand and know you and like actually like almost like control you to an extent, right? So now we're getting cell phones. We have wearable, whether it's Google Glass or Apple Watches.
More and more plugged in.
Yep. There's insider microchips that people are putting, we've had microchips in animals and so on, right? And eventually you have...
And in vaccines.
Yeah. I don't know if we can say that. We may get shut down by... But like, no, they're advancing to AI, right? Because then it'll make humans smarter, but easier to control. So that's what he went with a majority. So that's what he talks more about nowadays, right? Is just the control, the subgroups, the compartmentalization, the programming, as he calls it. And he doesn't really talk about lizard people anymore. But what's interesting though is in 2012 he created another book, right, saying human race, get off your knees. You
slut.
Human race, get off your knees. The lion sleeps no more. And in this book, he said he just had an epiphany. That guess what? The moon is projecting a holographic experience, and it's broadcasted by the reptilians.
I wish people would leave the moon alone.
I know. And he said that the rings of Saturn is actually artificial as well, and they're actually giant
Fruit Loops.
They are broadcasting. Basically, the moon acts as an amplifier and act like this. We are almost in a matrix type of thing.
What we're seeing is not really what's there.
Potential. So I'll explain that thought process. So that I think it kind of hypocrites what he was talking about earlier, right? So the thought process is, if you looked at the raw data of a Wi-Fi, it's just data, right? If you can like put glasses on that can actually see it, like the data transfer in the air, it's chaos, right? You don't really see anything. But if you have a program, then it interprets that data, and now you have a movie, a video, or whichever, right? So he's saying that our brains are that computer. And so there's a lot of data being fed in the air that our brains are now interpreting and translating so that you may not be real, babe.
Oh, I'm not real.
You're not real. I'm totally real, by the way. So
You're the real.
I'm the real. I always. So it's almost like a matrix style. Like, do you even know if this is reality? Think of like virtual reality.
So am I sleeping right now?
Potential, or you're just unconscious, or you're being fed on right now. Potential, you could be in the matrix, or you're being controlled right now as we speak. And they relate to think of like the Oculus or VR, right? Yeah. Right now, it's still kind of early version, but now do it 1,000 years from now.
Right.
How hard is it going to tell what's real, what's not real, especially from your brain and so on. However, with all that, the only reason why I'm like that seems to defeat the purpose, because why have all these compartmentalized groups and this reptilian race that's trying to control everyone with all these wars and everything else? Why create
all this confusion and mishmash?
If everyone is just plugged into a program, just be like, boop, everyone's miserable. And then you just feed off of it. Success. But unless they've already tried that, just like the Matrix, and they realize that people would not like it.
People need to feel like they're alive and living.
Free. See what I'm getting at, right? But I'm like, I just feel like it defeats the whole purpose of all of his previous stuff. And if they're controlling it, why would they even allow you to communicate and even try to expose it?
He's part of the Matrix, though, too, isn't he?
No, I just deleted him. Boop. Gone. So I don't get it. I don't get that it's a hollow
maybe he's
graphic.
Creating a problem. Maybe he's
maybe he's just keeping us there so that we feel like we have some control, and he's exposing some stuff, and we're like,
he's part of the system.
He is part of the system. I don't know. So I don't get all that. Yeah. So either way, ultimately, he says, how do you combat all this? Exposure is always good, but also non-compliance. Kind of like his poll tax, where he was non-compliant, and then eventually the government eventually said, "No, you need to produce."
So non-compliant. So how do you be not compliant if you don't know what's real and not real?
If the banking system is controlling the world government, with all the money,
live off the grid.
Potential. That's one way. Or if they're asking people to hate each other, don't hate each other. Have positive vibes, right? So who cares if you're a Democrat, Republican? I'm not going to hate you. Peace, love, man. It's all good. Everything's good. Positive vibes. Nice, right?
Nice.
So that's what his ultimate thing is. And so that's a lot of what David Icke has. And that's what he talks about when he does his speeches now. He still thinks that there's people out to get him, because he's like, these, the elites are worried that I'm going to be speaking the truth, and they're canceling my events, and they're trying to
make damn IRS is always trying to get their taxes.
He's claimed that people are after him for so on. Doing some research, the people who are actually going after him, they're saying
psychiatrists.
No, they're saying this guy is a huge anti-Semite.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we having him speak? Because he's talking about lizard people, but we all know he's talking about the Jewish people, and that's very insulting. So please don't have him at your venue. And they go, okay, that makes sense. I don't want him speaking about the Jewish as lizard people, so I'm going to not have him at our venue. But in his eyes, he's being silenced.
Oh, he's being silenced.
But going back to, and we're going to wrap it up, but think of this, and then COVID happens, right? Mm-hmm. Ooh, COVID. Ooh. So he started immediately thinking of he's had a 5G conspiracy. So this is his newest conspiracy, right?
He's behind all these conspiracies?
He's driving, he's one of the founders of it.
Why aren't we, who's his babysitter? Why is nobody controlling him?
No, he's getting more popular. And so when it came,
you don't give the toddler a chainsaw.
So, but if you look at the pandemic, right? They're pandemic because again, if the goal was to get microchips in everyone, let's just say, this is not me, don't shut me down or whatever. See, look, I even have to say that because the conspirators and the controllers are going to shut us down and silence us. Interesting. But, you know, if we wanted to get microchips in every person, well, how do we do that? Well, we have to have a vaccine for that. Okay, well, how do we do that?
We have to have a problem.
So let's get there. So that's the same principle, right? Let's create a pandemic and whatever.
I don't want to get vaccinated. Well, then
vaccinated.
You don't get money. You don't get paid.
You can't
go
work.
Places.
You can't go work. So because we control the money,
So
we
we're
control
going to
all
create
that.
another problem
And
to continue to get what we want.
Now you're on it. So he stated that the 5G contributed to the COVID outbreak. And he's quoted as saying, "What does 5G do? It does what 4G does, but even more." Words of wisdom.
Extra G stands for great.
Yeah. No, so he says it poisons the cells. It gets us poisoned because we get technological electromagnetic fields. And he said that Wuhan installed China's first 5G service. And that happened before the COVID outbreak. And so it was allowed to transmit the COVID outbreak to everyone. And in this case, it's actually true. Wuhan did have the first 5G network in China. But there was also 5 other cities that had it.
But they weren't the only ones.
Yeah, they weren't the only one, right? Beijing, Shanghai, some of these others had it.
But
and
so those
no one
saying that was that the only one with a World Health Organization biolab?
But here's the thing, right? The WHO founded that there is no evidence of adverse effect towards humans on these 5G cells. But of course they would. Because that organization is part of the global organization.
Of course.
And led by lizard people. So either way, based off his controversial comments on COVID and everything else, he was banned from YouTube, banned from Twitter, banned from everywhere. Or in his case, just being silenced by the elites.
Because he's the truth.
He is the truth. 360.
He's the way. No way.
So 360 spin here. That's David Icke in a nutshell. But 360 spin, he now also claims that climate change is a hoax. We'll leave it with that. I don't even want to go. I'm going to leave it at that. But he now went from Green Party, world's going to end because of the world. Now, climate change
not even a thing.
It's a hoax because it's another problem that was created, kind of like 9/11, kind of like COVID, to get to another solution. So he's not going to be part of it anymore. And he's going to say,
someone needs to control this man.
He is
being controlled.
He dropped the mic and he said, "I'm just sending positive vibes. I'm not going to buy in all your climate change, your COVID policies, your 9/11,
your
all this
poll
bullshit.
taxes.
Yeah, your poll taxes. Wait for me." I'm sorry. I did not mention too that eventually his Menage a Triangle turquoise thing phased out.
Oh, they disbanded?
They disbanded. And not only did he disband with his spirit wife, he also disbanded with his current wife.
Oh, no. So he's just solo turquoise?
No, I think he got married again.
He's a turquoise dot?
Who knows? But he doesn't wear turquoise anymore because, again, it was...
Why not?
He moved. Remember, he evolves.
He's progressing.
Yeah, he progresses. Yeah. Oh, actually, no. I forgot to mention one quick thing. When he was doing his interpretation of the moon, and when that came in, how he actually recognized that the moon came in was. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I apologize.
It's okay. I can edit.
Yeah, it was auto writing or something.
Oh,
you know what that is? What I'm talking about?
It's where you just sit with your thoughts and you just write whatever comes to you.
Yes.
Or you think that your thoughts, I think it is called automatic writing.
Yeah, I think it's automatic writing. And so that's how it came to him in addition. And so he uses that and he thinks it's a psychic thing because the spirit world is telling him that information. So then he looks at his notes and so on, right? However, this has been debunked by a lot of psychiatrists and so on who basically say it's similar to hypnotism, right? You are just not focusing on something and you're allowing your unconscious mind to kind of reveal and speak to you. So it's basically things that you may be thinking, but you may not be physically saying.
Not surface level thinking.
Not surface level thinking, right? So it has nothing to do with spirits. It has nothing to do with a conscious mind. It's really your own mind and some of the experiences you're feeling and you write them out. And sometimes you may be able to see that. So they don't think it's anything, spiritual or like
divine.
Ooh,
yeah.
So they use that in a lot of therapy sessions. So it's not, it's a well-known therapeutic thing.
Treatment.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all I had about David Icke. So I'm glad we were able to take it. That's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot. That's
hopefully you enjoyed learning something.
A lot. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
And as crazy. Okay, so it's like it all sounds crazy, but this stuff it keeps coming up.
So here's the thing.
Across like different things that I'm researching.
So I think the lizard folk thing is kind of interesting, but I really enjoyed learning about the Anunnaki during this research and the Sumerian Empire
I'm
and
glad
how
you
much
learned
influence it
about
had prior, like between Noah, Adam, Eve, the garden, all that stuff prior to the Bible even being written or even being talked about, and it influencing a lot of the other different cultures around society, because they even found where not only was it in there, but that same concept was throughout the globe.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's very interesting. Good
Yeah.
job, babe.
Yeah. So
Very
thank you.
good.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah.
That's a lot to unpack.
Stay positive and keep those reptilian. Oh,
Yeah.
wait a second. How do you know if you found a reptilian? If you see one?
Oh, okay.
Do we
So
even know?
the takeaway. So look for this following signs.
Yeah. So we'll end this up. How would you define if you thought
Well,
someone was a reptilian?
I would think clammy, sweating hands, but
like our child.
But that would mean that our,
Like our youngest daughter.
is a lizard person.
Yeah. So let's not do that. Thank you.
An extra limb.
Or the
like
ability to
lizards have
regrow an
tails.
extra limb.
Ew, gross. So
that
like
would
you
be-
lose your
That would be an indicator.
lose your leg in a traffic accident, and then all of a sudden leg. Ooh, what if
Like
it's like
Deadpool.
a tiny? Yeah, like it's a tiny leg.
That would be a clue that they're a
That's
lizard person.
gross.
No, but he actually did have some ways to point out a lizard folk. And so I'm going to run through it, and then we're going to send everyone off.
Okay.
One, do you have green eyes? If you have green eyes, you may be a lizard folk. Good eyesight or hearing. If you have red hair.
Gingers.
Gingers. Yep.
Scottish. Scottish gingers.
A
think they're all
sense
the
of
same.
not belonging to the human race, which is
I think
a lot
of people feel that way.
Unexplained scars on the body, because sometimes your body's trying to shape change into its true form.
Oh, your body's trying to like
Yeah.
go. Oh,
Yeah, so you may see scarring or old scars. You may not even
Stretch
remember
marks?
this. Stretch marks, all that we have. The love of space, like the yearning to go back there.
Oh, like drawn to the universe.
Yeah, like that's where your home world is.
Oh.
And then lastly, low blood pressure. So I feel like there's half the world is like four of those 7.
Yeah.
He gave 7. So I don't know if you have to be all 7.
I would think of maybe all 7. I don't.
Can you
think
imagine being a
be
lizard hunter and you're like, you just need to have 5 out of the 7.
lizard hunting kit, like a vampire hunting
Yeah,
kit.
lizard hunter.
What would be in it? Well, I know salt's bad on snails. What would you throw at a lizard person?
Oh man. Apparently they love the blood, so I don't know if you have to like throw
Oh,
blood
well, you could
vials
use
to
that
like
to
trap.
like draw them.
Yeah, lure them in. Man,
They feed off of fear, right?
I
Oh, I don't want to scare anybody to lure them.
yeah. That's just
Okay,
scary.
well, don't think about things.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'll have a jar of flies,
Oh,
and so if I'm in a room, I would let it go and see if anyone's tongue instinctually comes out, like.
gross.
And then if I see the tongue and the hair, that's all I need.
That's it.
Boom. Done.
A ginger with their tongue out.
That's what I'm looking for. Who here? Ginger with the tongue out.
All right, we're coming
Dead.
for you. We're coming for
Boom.
you, gingers.
Bullet to the head. Nice.
Oh, don't say that part. I'll cut that out.
What?
to the head.
Bullet to the head.
No, I'm going to cut that out.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Listen to your
Question your gingers.
Question your gingers. Don't be a lizard. Get positive. And don't listen through your butt.
Wait. And don't think with your butt.
There you go. Don't think of your butt. Let's do this.
Bye, everybody. Woo.
Holistic
Holistic.
There you go.
Holistic.
Glad you were able to
Repeat
jump in
after
there.
me.
Holistic
Healing.
healing. There you go. Holistic healing.